It was a very sad period. There was like a sadness over the city. When you looked out, you saw hardly anybody walking around. People stayed in their houses because they were afraid. And they said that it seems that if it killed you, it did it fast. Because I remember them telling me that a young neighbor, and the next afternoon they saw him carried out. He died.
Of all the cities in the U.S., Philadelphia had.
The Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 demonstrated the inability of nations to cope with prolific numbers of patients. Why? There was a shortage of available and experienced physicians. There was a false optimism and lack of knowledge about the flu given by health officials and lawmakers. Where did all these physicians go? Because World War I was simultaneously occurring, many went to treat soldiers either at home or abroad. The severity of many of these injuries, such as battle wounds and mustard gas burns, required immediate and professional medical attention. However, some doctors unfortunately died when traveling from one destination to another since they were regularly exposed to the disease. Hospitals were constantly taxed to the limit. So who are they going to call? The Red Cross, of course. The all-American volunteer group, the Red Cross. The Red Cross accounted for about 1/3 of the entire population, so all the volunteers spread out around the country, forming distinct chapters to assist the best that they could with the flu. The main alternative to the Red Cross volunteers were less experienced medical students who were generally fresh out of medical school. The Red Cross volunteers contributed greatly to their cause, mainly preparing necessities and tending for the ill. However, without professional medical attention, their impact was limited. Masks like these were required by law to be worn by all citizens, but how effective were they, if at all? What kind of false optimism? Ineffective isolation or quarantine and masks. Isolation and quarantine are effective in the 21st century, but during the period of the Spanish flu, these methods were nowhere near as effective, partly due to the rapid transmission of the flu. Masks were the most advocated method for preventing the flu, deemed so important that officials would pass laws requiring them to be worn. Failure to comply could lead to arrest or other punishment. However, many wore them incorrectly, and for others, they provided a false sense of security. On top of that, the masks provided no real protection against the influenza because the influenza was a virus. The simple act of refusing to wear a mask led to the death, the imprisonment, or the hardship of many. Newspapers and advertisements, many of which were sponsored and funded by the health department, provided false statistics and skewed scientific research to persuade citizens to wear a mask that would only provide them limited protection and a false sense of security. After the Spanish flu, countries around the world have made improvements to cope with the future epidemic. Some of these include advances in medicine, advances in technology, experience, and emphasis on health. A children's rhyme from 1918. I had a little bird. Its name was Enza. I opened the window, and influenza. Little did they know that this bird would carry the disease that killed 50 million people around the world, impact the futures of hundreds of millions of people, and forever leave a scar of fear on the world.